What's up, QAA listeners?
The fun games have begun.
I found a way to connect to the internet. I'm sorry, boy. Welcome, listener, to Premium Chapter 205 of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, the Red Pilled Poetry Night episode. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky
and Julian Fields. This week, we're going to be exploring some red-pilled poetry, specifically a book released a few months ago titled Red Pill Rhymes, A Poetical Awakening. Our guests are Andrew, Branson, and Charles from the Episode 1 podcast. How's it going, fellas?
What's up?
Hey. I'd be a little better if we had some crack here.
It's going to work very well when people have there's no callback.
So before the episode started. Well, basically, for the people listening, basically we were just talking about, how funny it is to smoke crack. So that's the context of smoking crack, basically.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Sorry. Charles ruined the show. I'm sorry.
Well, we thought it would be cool and funny, but Jake was saying he's done it, so he really he one-upped us all.
Well, don't say it. We don't know if he wants to talk about it. You can't just say he's done it. We're guests on their podcast. It's just not how you do
He's
things.
already told this story on this podcast.
Yeah, I've told all my stories, all my good stories, of which there are maybe 14, have already been told multiple times on the show. Nobody cares anymore about the drugs I have done or will do.
Or the gnomes you've seen or whatever.
Yeah, the gnomes that you know.
Yeah, the gnomes that I know.
The gnomes he smoked crack with, who he's still in contact with. Some of them have kids.
We get together every Thanksgiving.
All right. So, fellas, tell us a little bit about E1 if our audience doesn't know your podcast.
Well, first of all, you can't find it anywhere, because if you look for it, it's going to find Star Wars instead.
That's not true. It comes up pretty easy if you put podcast.
If you type in E1 podcast, silly.
Not E1. Just Google podcast, and it'll show up eventually.
Episode 1 podcast, is that the correct search for it?
That should work.
I don't know, man.
We didn't think it through. We're a couple years into it now.
6 years into it now.
Episode 1 podcast is like 3 people being like, well, I really did like Jake Lloyd's performance in the pod racing scene.
Well, we have talked a lot on episode 1 about Sebulba.
Oh, yeah. Class act.
Like what his dick looks like,
yeah.
How much tang he gets, how cool he is, how nasty and rude he is.
He definitely has like an elbow in his penis.
He's the highlight of that
He has
movie.
like a move, a knuckle in his penis for sure.
Oh, Andy. Coming for pod pods.
Don't.
Is that the anti-Semitic alien?
Yeah. Little Annie, come for your mother.
Yeah, that alien was not subtle. He was not subtle,
Yeah, he had a proper hooked nose and everything.
He ran all the banks, they said.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were going for.
It was a different time, though, in the early 2000s. Like, we just didn't know back then that wasn't okay.
Yeah. Well, George Lucas, he could get away with anything. He could have made all the characters anti-Semitic, and, people still would have probably come out and seen the movie. I know I would have.
I know Jar Jar is racist against somebody, but I don't know who.
You know how, like, in the same way that J.K. Rowling always retcons stuff in Harry Potter, George Lucas should start doing that for Star Wars and be like, oh, Yoda's face is actually what I think Muhammad's face looks like.
I think Jar Jar Binks is he's like, I'm gonna take everyone and smash them together. And this is what we get.
He's like the racist like Megatron, like just pieces of all racism combined into one large robot.
Yeah, what if I could be racist to multiple people at the same time and Jar Jar Binks was born?
Jar Jar was definitely based on his kids' diapers, or like it's like he got baby brain or like child brain, like Johnny Depp, where he's like, I just want to make movies where my kids can see me as a pirate.
Travis is listening to this episode just trying to figure out like his exit strategy
Why
from
would
QAA.
he listen? Why would he ever listen?
He listens to all the
He won.
episodes, I think.
He doesn't listen to the ones he's not on, I hope.
No, I think he does.
I've said a lot of things about him. I hope he doesn't.
All right. What's this episode doing?
So we're going to be, reading from that book, and then after we take a look at that, we'll be chasing the inspiration and hosting our very first Red Pilled Poetry Night here at QAA. And we have even more guests for that part. I'm talking about the fixtures in contemporary poetry, Jerome Durepois, Joseph Rogan, no relation, Thomas Kinkade Jr., and of course, Hotdog Taylor. You might already know the first three from their short-lived podcast, So I Wrote a Thing. But before they grace us with their presence, let's get to our beautiful featured author tonight, R.K. Gandhi. And I've included a photo if you guys could try to describe what kind of guy we're looking at here.
Well, he's got a unique haircut, I'll say. It appears that he has a long, full head of hair, but he, for some reason, chooses to employ the comb over. He is doing a thing that, like, mid to ugly level men do, where they try to look, like, really striking in photos. He's trying to look like he's peering past the camera, so you would go, this guy is a true poet, He's definitely worked on his author photo. Doesn't know what to do with his hands. One is in the pocket. One is just kind of holding nothing. And he looks like he's middle aged, even though he's probably like 29.
He kind of looks like a Silicon Valley VC. Like he's very put together. He's clearly in like at least upper middle class home, and has this kind of like fitting sweater to show like, yeah, I do work out.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a crypto guy, but instead of always talking about Bitcoin, he's just like obsessed with rape.
This is once again the kind of guy who corners you at a party and talks to you for an hour and a half about like why you must go to Burning Man and how it was like the best experience of his life.
He just completely wasted an ayahuasca trip by like fantasizing about a new startup during it the whole time.
100%. So his Instagram bio reads poet, and then there's the Canadian flag because he is from. Actually, maybe I shouldn't say the specific.
Yeah.
He's from.
Yeah, okay. He's from Canada.
He's from Ontario,
Yeah.
the province of Ontario in Canada. So probably like Toronto suburbs, basically. He started posting on Instagram in November 2021, and he describes himself this way:
truth seeker and spiritual freedom fighter. Started posting in November 2021.
No, he didn't write that. That's what I just read.
That's a good way of saying I sit at the computer.
Yeah, all bios should start with when you started publishing words to the internet.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to the internet, but I have it figured out like kind of faster than most people.
Yeah, I just like to imagine him just like realizing in 2021, like a year into the pandemic in North America, and being like, oh my God, I'm a poet.
Just waking up one night.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Clutching his chest. The poetry's been inside me this whole time.
Yeah, which is a much better use of his ayahuasca trip, discovering that he himself is a poet and that he should start, releasing his poetry out into the world.
So the book is it's like a white book. It's got a bright red pill at the center and
Subtle.
nothing else.
Subtle.
Yeah. So he's clearly like he wants to kind of sell this as a book that isn't just his regular poetry that he added a few like, I don't know, culture war style poems at the end. Not at all. It's a full book where you get to awaken poetically.
The font on the cover reminds me of like other sort of like faux poetry books. Like, I don't know if you guys have read Haikus for Jews. It's a staple in my parents' house.
It's another anti-Semitic reference, or
no, it's a full book of haikus that only Jewish people would find funny.
Oh, so it's pro-Semitic.
It's pro-Semitic.
Only Jewish people would find it funny.
I remember one of them was something along the lines.
Can you test if someone's a Jewish person by reading it to them and seeing if they laugh?
One of the poems, it was something like 7-foot tall Jews in the NBA slam dunking. My alarm clock rings.
Oh my God!
It's like chicken soup for the soul, but for Jewish people.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
So, like, your goy friends come over and they're like whispering to each other, like, "Are we allowed to laugh at this? Can we laugh at this?"
Yeah. Don't laugh.
I mean,
don't laugh.
As a Gentile, am I allowed to laugh at 7-foot tall Jews dunking in the NBA?
Yes, yes. It'll never happen. That's what's funny about it.
So the opening poems in the book are all very defensive and offensive. It's almost like the first 10 or 15 poems he has in here are just like, oh, you don't want me to write, but I'm going to write anyways. Or like other poets don't know how to write and they actually suck and stuff like that. Just very, very like self-aware. And there's 5 parts of the book entitled Ego, Broken, Process, Truth, and Awaken.
Shivered. Shivered just hearing that.
So tonight we're going to be reading a little selection from this. The book opens with a warning to the reader about what lies inside. So this is the end of the opening poem.
Oh, shit.
We're taking this book old school, raw connection over sentence size. It's soul food, a cold hard brew. You can taste the idioms and rhymes. Writing that puts you in the mood, letting loose inhibitions to give rise to the rebel inside. A good excuse to run stark naked in the woods outside. Skinny dip in a knowledge pool, head first in search for reasons why. Drink words from a fountain of truth, quench the thirst that frees your mind. A non-linear journey to your prelude, invoked by thought-provoking lines, poetically probed until you conclude there's pleasure in the ill-defined, an explicit lyrical design to produce a mental and spiritually induced high. But before it's all misunderstood and the author gets much maligned.
Nice callback.
Here's a warning should you choose to unleash the divine beast inside. Language used may be foul for a few who devour this feast for the eyes. Reader discretion advised.
Whoa!
So he put, oh my
That's
God.
not
Conservatives didn't like the warning.
You have been listening to a sample of a premium episode of QAnon Anonymous.
We don't run any advertising on the show, and we'd like to keep it that way.
For $5 a month, you'll get access to this episode, a new one each week, and our entire library of premium episodes.
So head on over to patreon.com/QAnon Anonymous and subscribe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I love you.
Jake loves you.